Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the September 2025 edition of Epic Insight. This is Joe Corona, and I'm the Director of Sales and Strategic Partnerships at Epic Retirement Plan Services, and I'll be your host for today's call. And as we begin today's session, I must say that when our presenters and I started talking about this session, I was really excited about it because they're about to embark on one of my favorite topics in how to compete within our industry. The defined contribution landscape is continually evolving, and competition is steep. And this webinar will share key insights from Dimensional Fund Advisors' Retirement Advisor Study to help you compete for business to win new clients. It'll help focus on key reasons retirement advisors are hired, constructing an effective, focused value proposition, top prospecting strategies, building centers of influence, and maximizing a new opportunity through your pitch book. With this in mind, we are excited to have joining us Kim Ginsberg and Rachel Loico from Dimensional Fund Advisors. Kim is the Regional Director and Vice President of National Accounts at DFA, and Rachel is a Regional Director of National Accounts at DFA. Both bring extensive industry experience, and we are excited to have them leading our session today. And before I turn it over to Kim and Rachel, I want to remind you that your line will be muted throughout the call, but if you have any questions that you would like addressed, please enter them in the webinar control panel, and we will address them at the end of this session. With that, I will turn it over to Kim.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for that warm introduction, Joe. Rachel and I are very excited to be with you today. And before I jump into our agenda, let me just share a quick overview of Dimensional, or DFA as we're also known. But we've been managing money now for 44 years around the globe. And since that time, we've grown to over $853 billion in assets. And since our founding, we've only operated under one investment philosophy, which is based on a brief belief in the power of markets. And if you're familiar with Dimensional, you know financial science is at the core of everything that we do here at the firm, which is why we're able to offer low cost, broadly diversified portfolios across a variety of asset classes through a very flexible implementation approach. But what does that mean in practical terms? Well, retirement investing is a long-term proposition, right? So if we think about a 20-year investment horizon, 84% of our equity and fixed income funds have been able to outperform their benchmark over that 20-year horizon, which I think is a true testament to how we manage money at Dimensional to improve investor outcomes. And all of our funds are available on the Epic platform. So with that, let's get into the good stuff. I'm going to show my screen, and you should all see the agenda. So this presentation, we designed this, it's centered around ideas and frameworks to help you capitalize on your business development opportunities. As Joe said, we're knee-deep selling season, so if you can take a few tidbits from this in your day-to-day, I think that's a success. But whether you're newer to the retirement market or a DC specialist, we do hope you find value from today. So let's kick it off by assessing the DC opportunity, because as you know, there is tremendous potential for advisors in this industry. The DC market has grown to over 12 trillion in assets. More growth is expected. Cerulli recently released a research that states that the number of 401k plans in the US is expected to exceed 1 million in 2029, which is almost 4 years away. So there's a lot going on. And that growth is primarily being driven by the micro market. So think startups to businesses up to 5 million. And as you can see on the slide, there are over 33 million small businesses in the US, with over 61 million individuals working for that business. So the opportunity is right, but here's the catch. Small businesses need your help. 2/3 of them don't have a plan. But the good news is the Secure Act is making it easier than ever before to set up a 401k plan. And then the IRA state mandates are kind of forcing the issue as well. 20 states have passed state mandated retirement programs. And currently there are 14 states that have active programs. So I think that's a great starting place, but I think you getting involved, would be able to offer better solutions for these plan sponsors. But that is just one of many reasons to be in this space, right? Another reason is the DC business is sticky. It does offer stable revenue streams, which can help diversify your business if you're really focused on wealth management. It can help strengthen your relationships with business owners, C-suite individuals, all who, by the way, have influence over their retirement plan. And if you're not offering the solution, somebody else is going to. And then the last topic on here is it can help you uncover new wealth management leads. So as Jill mentioned, every few years, we come out with our retirement advisor benchmarking study tied to our global advisor study. And what advisors told us in there is they found 6.8 on average new wealth management leads from their DC plans. So those are leads that they may not have gotten otherwise. So there is a lot to be excited about. So if I transition to the next slide, continuing on that importance of just that convergence of retirement and wealth, I mean, it's significant. It covers all channels, whether independent, broker-dealer, RIA, wirehouses, everybody is focusing on that and how they can create a pipeline of new wealth management leads. And you can see it was the #1 focus area of our benchmarking study as well. So what's driving that? Well, I would say industry consolidation, of course, is one reason, but better data and leveraging that data from your firm, but also your record keeping partner. And that's allowing you to provide, get more engagement, that is, get more engagement with participants in all life stages instead of waiting for them until they separate from service or retire. So just sticking on the slide for a little bit longer, let's just take a look at some of the other notable trends that advisors told us they're focusing on. One you can see is plan sponsor fiduciary training. Shameless plug, Dimensional does offer a very practice management oriented fiduciary resource guide that can assist with this. And then you see PEPs, state mandates, not a surprise given what we just talked about, starting to pick up steam. I feel like the next time we come out with our study, we may see more advisors checking we are offering these solutions now. And then still in the considering phase, student debt, and then it feels like guaranteed income in plan annuities is always in the consideration phase, but hopefully that changes in the near term. So let's transition to retirement value proposition. And as I talk through this section, think about what's setting you apart to win business from other advisors. So going back to our study quickly, on this one, we asked advisors, why are you being hired? What's setting you apart? And in looking at the results, I'm not going to say I'm surprised. It's your 3 F's, right? Fees, funds, fiduciary, service, always critically important. Service both from your record keeper TPA, but also the advisor, which could be a great opening for you if they're providing poor service. But I'll be honest, I do view these topics as table stakes. Where I was a little surprised was to see the lower response for helping participants off track for retirement. I believe this category can offer you a competitive advantage because you can implement solutions to help participants improve their outcomes, have them provide more confidence in their ability to retire, which is ultimately why we're creating these retirement plans. And if we can help employees through their employer succeed in life, they're going to be much happier, which leads to a more productive workforce, which I think is something that business owners, CFOs, HR professionals are very focused on these days. All right. So here are the 4 quadrants of a value proposition. So again, how is your value proposition today going to address a client's reasons for seeking a change or establishing that new plan? And these are the 4 pillars that we see advisors are focusing on to really set themselves apart. If you focus on that top left, implementing programs to improve participant outcomes, there we're thinking about personalization, personalized advice, managed accounts, financial wellness, which I would like to call the 4th F, and just keeping fees reasonable. And then top right, enhancing plan design, benchmarking, doing what you can to help business owners save on taxes, but maximize how much they can save and how much their employees can save. Managing risk, reducing liability is another factor, but being able to do it in a systematic way so that you can spend more time on your business development activities. And then lastly, delegate. Build partnerships, that ecosystem that's going to assist you in your sales and servicing element. There are a ton of moving parts in the management of a plan, as you are no doubt well aware of. But you're the quarterback, so remember to delegate, leverage your record keeper like Epic, your TPAs, your DCIOs. We are all partners that you can rely on in your day-to-day. And Joe, I know you have some impactful tools at Epic that can help improve participant outcomes. Do you want to share a couple for the audience?
Yes, absolutely, Kim. Thank you. Obviously, through our Go Retire web application that participants and plan sponsors have access to, we have a full suite of financial wellness courses and webinars that participants can learn more about. How to budget, how to keep a monthly budget, how do you save for college, how do you prepare for retirement, and really it's in partnership with the program that many of our advisor partners put together and present to clients in person. So where we have the benefit of our advisor partners there on the ground, meeting with participants directly, they can also leverage the web tools that are available to our financial wellness application through our website, as well as we have a My Retirement Goal Tracker that can assist participants with really pinpointing how much do I need to save for retirement, because we used to get that question quite considerably, and I'm sure all of us always wonder, how much should I have saved for retirement? We read so many articles with so many varying numbers, and we know that it's different for all of us. What is an appropriate number for myself is going to be different for Kim, is going to be different for Rachel, because we all have different thoughts of what retirement is going to look like for us. So that My Retirement Goal is really how they're built for a participant to really hone in terms of how much I need to save, and then also how much do I need to not only save within the 401k plan, but potentially save also outside of the plan, and how does my advisor help me with all of those aspects of my overall retirement plan.
No, that makes a lot of sense. It's that holistic viewpoint into the participant, not just the retirement, but giving them, financial wellness and security all around. So no, that sounds great. All right, well, continuing on in our presentation, we're going to transition over to sales strategy. So hopefully you can see my agenda again, which says establish your sales strategy. Awesome. All right, so let's turn the page. And let's start out with identifying what's your target market. Do you have a target market? Especially important for advisors newer to this space, having identified a sweet spot in terms of the plan size that you are working with. Are you focusing on that micro market? Are you going to the mid-large market? The number of participants that you can feasibly work with. Or where do you want to do business, for example? Do you want to stay in your local market, or do you want to go regional, national? How far do you want to travel to service your clients? So having that target market, I think, will help you scale as you grow. And you may need to reassess and pivot as you grow and learn as well. And then number two, consider a niche market. So for the business that you want to go after, whether that's law firms, private equity firms, women clientele. We did this workshop with an advisor who is a veteran. And he was in the Army Special Forces for about 15 years. And after he retired, he became an advisor. And not surprisingly, he's targeting veteran-owned businesses. That's his niche market. So he's leveraging his unique skill set to differentiate him and present himself as an expert to that specific market. And then number three, establish yourself as an authority of what you're talking about. And that could be retirement, or it could be something else you're passionate about or have deep expertise with. If I go back to that Special Forces Army veteran, for example, he mentioned that he has a vlog on leadership. And that makes a lot of sense. So something to consider if you're not doing already, you could do educational seminars, podcasts, newsletters, write some white papers, media commentary. There are a host of ways that you can put yourself in the mainstream to get noticed as the go-to advisor in your community. And then, oops, sorry, went too fast. Oh, here we go again. Last point, technology. Make sure you're leveraging your existing relationships, whether that's through LinkedIn, maybe you're involved in your local Rotary Club, your country club, volunteering. So whatever it is that you're doing, make sure your prospects in your niche market are aware you're in the business. The most frustrating thing to hear from a prospect or your existing client is that they didn't know you did that and they went elsewhere to get it. So don't let that happen. And along those lines, does your website, does your social media presence reflect your value proposition in the market you're going after? If your website is only talking about your wealth management business, for example, you could be losing out on retirement opportunities as a result. All right, so let's turn our attention to prospecting. Prospecting is the #1 challenge retirement advisors tell us about in our survey. We all need to do it. There's a lot of different ways we can prospect, from cold calling, reviewing 5,500 lists, hosting social events. But what we found from our study that seems to work best are just those good old-fashioned referrals. Referrals from your existing clients and referrals from your centers of influence. So let's unpack that a bit more and spend more time on these two categories. So when it comes to getting referrals, for example, how are advisors doing it? And honestly, it's just coming down to making sure you're asking for the business. At Dimensional, we talk a lot about building discipline into our day-to-day sales process. So really think about asking for referrals as a discipline in your normal business activity. And then establish yourself as that go-to advisor for your clients in that niche market you're going after. And then centers of influence, who are they? In our study, we asked, and advisors told us they're your CPA firms, your insurance providers, the record keepers like Epic, your local TPAs. Essentially, anybody doing B2B work with your clients or prospects is probably a good center of influence. And so how are they building them? Trust. Trust was cited as the #1 reason on getting client referrals as well as getting centers of influence to work with them. And there's a lot of ways to build trust, and no doubt everybody on this webcast has your own unique of doing that, but I have been in conversations with advisors like, this sounds great, but how do I start that process? And so what I tend to say is #1, just be you. That's the easiest thing you can do. But then just remember to let firms know you're in the business. And communicate your value proposition. You would be surprised at how many just don't do this. And then I think more importantly, take time to really understand your centers of influence business. Where are they prospecting to grow? How are they compensated? Are they working with other advisors? All very important questions that you could ask in your discovery conversations with them. And then sometimes you're going to have to deliver your value first before you can ever expect to get a referral lead. So what does this mean? Well, maybe it's providing some education, maybe it's doing a free financial plan, or making an introduction for them. Of course, we aren't in the business of offering our services for free. So it really is a balancing act in terms of building that trust and reciprocity. All right, let's go to how to approach an opportunity. Okay, so you have the opportunity. You've built your value proposition, you have your sales strategy, you prospected the right people, so now you're in front of key decision makers. It's going to be important to figure out what's motivating the business owner, the HR professional to make a change. And everyone here, we are problem solvers. That's what we do in our day-to-day. We're here to address problems, but you have to find them first. And discovery is going to be key in that process. So you're going to want to make sure you're conveying that value proposition and how your services and process is going to solve their problems. But I will say this, please avoid the temptation of being the lowest cost provider, because you're going to lose. You're going to lose when somebody comes in after you and says, I have a lower fee. So sell your services first. And then how do you just start that discovery conversation? Well, issues are a very easy way to start the conversation, but it just may be an introductory meeting. So in that case, you're going to have to find them and solve problems they don't realize they have. One way to start a conversation is what I like to call bear trap questions. These are a terrific set of questions that by asking them, you're just implicitly finding out what the plan's biggest needs are, what they're not getting from their current advisor, which could be an opening for you. So let's walk through each box. Box 1, when was the last time you had your plan reviewed? You may find in conversation they have no idea when this last occurred, or maybe they haven't met with their advisor in the last 2 years. So this is an opening for you to showcase your value and what you can bring to the table. Number 2, what's the one thing you would improve about your plan? This gets to their motivation for making a change. Box 3, how well do you think your plan is doing to set up your employees for retirement? This one gets to the purpose of their 401k plan, which again is helping participants get to that dignified retirement. And to me, this is the ultimate question. And I like to say that there's a difference between a popular plan and a successful plan. A popular plan is when the HR professional is telling you, hey, we've got an 80% replacement rate. We're doing just fine. We don't need your help. But what if you told them, did you know of that 80% participation rate? The average deferral is only 2%. You're really not setting up your participants for success. That goes in showing that you really understand the mechanics of their plan and can open the door to some plan design discussions to improve outcomes. And then box 4, fees, always about fees. How quickly would the plan or advisor be able to evaluate disclosure? So being able to evaluate fee disclosure and having that conversation with you could earn a lot of brownie points. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rachel, because you now have that opportunity with your prospect. It's now, what is your best bet to best foot forward to capitalize on, I can speak. In this next section, Rachel is going to focus on how you pull all this together through your pitch deck and servicing plan, which honestly are both essential tools to not only win the business, but retain it. So Rachel, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Kim. And good afternoon, everyone. As Kim mentioned, we're going to spend the rest of the session talking a little bit about a pitch book. We're going to go through what is it in the context of retirement plan business. We're going to talk a little bit about the components that you want to think about as you're putting yours together, and then ultimately how you're going to integrate that in with your clients and prospects for that matter. So to answer the question, what is a pitch book? Really, it's a tool that you're going to be able to leverage to differentiate yourself and tell your story when you're working with your clients. This is something that is not only great for prospects to help you have a scalable, repeatable process, but once that client becomes a client, it's a tool that you can use over and over on an annual basis or quarterly basis to retell your story, to check in, and to reinforce all of the great things that you're doing for that plan. So that's a little bit about what is a pitch book. We're now going to jump into what are some of the components that you're going to want to build in or think about as you're putting yours together. First and foremost, I want to say that there's not a one-size-fits-all for this. Everybody who's on this call has a lot of experience, has great ideas, has different ways of doing business and highlighting yourself. So you want to customize this and make it your own, but we're going to really show you some of the key components that we think that you can use to create this. So first and foremost, you want to make sure that it includes your value proposition. As Kim talked about the 4 quadrants, the 4 pillars, what makes you different, what sets you apart, it's really important that you're going to be able to tell this story as you're going through the process. Secondly, you want to make sure that you're really clear on the plan sponsor's goals. As we know, you can go into a conversation with an agenda, and it can be a great agenda, but if it's not matching up to what's top of mind for the client, there's going to be a disconnect, and your message may not be going as far as you want it to. And we're going to show you a way that you can really make sure you're on the same page with what the client is looking to solve for as you continue in with the conversation. Firm overview is definitely something that you want to make sure that you have locked and loaded. It seems very intuitive, but at the end of the day, you want to be able to share what you're proud of, whether it's facts, stats, how long you've been in business, who you're working with, any other clients that you want to highlight. All of that good stuff should have some type of place in this conversation. How you're going to work with your clients, what you're going to bring to the table, what your team looks like, and we'll go through that in a couple of slides to show you how to put together some really great resources to tell that story. And then walking them through, again, it's not a one and done conversation. Once you have that business, how are you going to service it each year, year over year, to make sure that you're meeting goals and adding value as you continue that relationship? So once you've been able to uncover what the goals are for the client and tell them all of the fantastic ways that you're going to help them reach those goals and solve their challenges, you don't want to forget to ask for the business. So at the end of the day, they can take all of your great ideas and put them into implementation. But if you're not asking them for the opportunity to help work with them and solve those challenges going forward, then you're leaving that opportunity on the table. So that's a little bit of some of the components, but let's show some pieces that you can use and bring this to life when you're working with your clients. So a client's goals are really important for you to understand. And this is a worksheet that we've seen success with. You can certainly customize it and make it your own, but you'll see those 4 quadrants on the page: managing risk, delegating, better participant outcomes, and then ultimately how do we talk through costs and making sure that they have a competitive plan. So what you want to do is really walk through with the client and ask them some open-ended questions to get them to identify, do they feel like they're achieving these things today? Are they not achieving them, but it's a primary goal, or have they not really thought about it and it's something that maybe they're going to solve later? This is going to really help you hone in and get a roadmap for where you want to go next. You also want to make sure that you're diving into that next level of questions, because asking a client, are you comfortable with your investment process? You might get a yes. But if you take it one step further and ask them, are you comfortable that you're meeting your fiduciary obligations? That may get a different answer, and that may go on the goal list. So you want to make sure that you're taking those components and what they want to achieve, and then directing the conversation with the pitch book to identify and answer to those challenges. So you're going to see at the bottom of the page 4 boxes. The way we have this set up in a great best practice is being able to click on each of those to take you directly to the section that highlights that particular topic. So almost a choose your own adventure. If the client wants to talk about participant outcomes and that's their #1 goal, then by all means, click on that box and go straight to that section. But for today's purposes, we're going to just go in order and start with risk. So if we could go on to the next slide, we will talk a little bit about managing risk and reducing liability and how you can bring those concepts to life with your client. So this would be a great place to have some type of visual to talk about what is your fiduciary responsibility as the advisor and what are you taking on. If you're acting as 338, for instance, this is a great place to explain what that means and how it brings value to the process. Giving an example of your investment policy statement, your fund selection, ongoing monitoring and due diligence process, and what you're going to deliver to the client on a quarterly basis. And again, I'll say that we've included some icons and snapshots here, but by no means do you have to use these exact pieces. This is just an idea for what you might want to put on a page. The other thing that I'll mention is not every client is tech savvy. They may want to have something printed out, so you can certainly print these documents, put them in a folder, leave them behind for the client, or use them as you're going through the conversation. But again, this is just an idea of how to talk to managing risk and reducing liability, and what you're bringing to the table around those concepts in the conversation. So next, we want to talk about how can we delegate, plan tasks. This is a slide that we get a lot of really fantastic feedback around, and for those who haven't used something like this, we see a lot of our advisor clients really excited about putting something together. This is a way to bring your team to life. I would highly recommend using pictures so that if these folks aren't in the conversation with you, that the client has an understanding that it's not just you and you alone, that you have a whole team around you and they're all there to play a role and help support that business. If you want to make sure that you're not just listing out their picture, of course, but what is their role, and maybe a couple of examples of why the client might hear from one of these folks other than yourself. It serves a couple of purposes. One, it lets them know that you have a robust team behind you and you're not doing everything on your own. But two, it also lets them know that if someone from your team is reaching out, that it's not because you as their advisor are not reaching out to them, it's because you're leveraging this whole collaborative team to help them. And not to despair if you don't have a large team with lots of pictures to add on the page. Definitely if you're working with record keepers like Epic, if you have a TPA, feel free to add their pictures and their information on the page just so that you can show the breadth and depth of the full team that's going to be supporting the client through this process. So again, a great slide, highly recommend putting one together if you haven't already done that. The next page is something that you can incorporate that really talks through all of the different services that are needed to run a retirement plan, and then who are the different players that may be engaging. And again, this could look different depending on the setup and the relationships that you have, but putting it all on one page really helps to make it clear of who's going to be doing what. And it also gives you examples to share around how you're not doing everything on your own, you're delegating and making sure that you're leveraging all of your partners as well. And then it also gives you an opportunity to make it clear with the plan sponsor of what their responsibilities are going to be as you go forward in the relationship. So next, if we can click on the participant outcomes button, this is really what the retirement plan is all about, right? Making sure that the participants are getting to and through retirement and that they're successful in their outcomes so that they can have a successful retirement. I wouldn't say pay as much attention to the actual visual that we have here on the slide. This is really where you're going to want to put anything that you want to use to represent your knowledge of industry trends, things that the client may be seeing in the media. So it could be something like the concept of managed accounts. It could be lifetime income. It could be different things around the investment vehicles that are popular. We're hearing a lot about private equities and retirement plans today. And if the client is not wanting to delve into anything quite that sophisticated, this is a good place to talk about what do matching contributions look like for different plans out there. What does a default investment look like? What are the different things that we can be putting in place to the plan to make sure that it's successful for that particular client? There's a ton of resource out there. There's the Plan Sponsor Magazine benchmarking survey. You can obviously research on your own. You can leverage your partners like Epic and other TPAs and record keepers to make sure that you're getting the most up-to-date information. DCIO partners, we have a lot of great resources, white papers, etc. But really highlighting what are the things that you need to put in place to create a successful outcome. I think Joe was talking earlier about some of the different calculators and tools and things that are also supporting financial wellness. You could also think about highlighting some of those resources as well. So if we go to the next slide, this is really around your role in the investment space and giving the client an idea of what type of investment options may be available to them in their plan. So are they looking to do it themselves? And so on the right side, you'll see all of the different funds that might be available in the universe or lineup. Are they looking to have someone help them do it? That may be where you're putting things like target date funds, managed account offerings, etc. But again, just bringing to life the full support and breadth around the investment side of the story. And again, customize this however you think it makes the most sense for your practice. And the last button that we're clicking is around how are you going to make sure that the plan is most successful for your clients and most competitive for your clients. So talking about how you're going to go about reassessing on an annual basis. What do the different components of the plan look like? What do the costs look like? Are you going through an RFP process to make sure you have the most competitive offering out there? This is something that you can do on an ongoing basis for the client, but you want to make sure that you're able to articulate that up front so they understand that you're working for them and making sure that you're putting all of the success factors in place and then assessing them on an ongoing basis. So if we move to the next page, these are going to be a couple of concepts that we want to walk through, not just setting up for that plan that you're hoping to bring on board, but also relevant for ongoing conversations that you're going to have with the client year after year. So this is just a sample of what might that firm overview slide look like with the stats and facts about you, about your business. This is something that you want to reiterate with your client on a regular basis and not just assuming that because you've talked about it once that they understand what you're bringing to the table for them. So again, just another idea or template of what you can use in this space. This is another great piece that really highlights, there's a lot of moving parts within a retirement plan. There's things that need to be done on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, annual basis, and putting them all in one place, I think is really impactful for you and for the client just to understand we need to educate the employees. We need to, review their investments. We need to make sure that plan design is where it needs to be. So this really just highlights as an advisor what you may be doing, but you don't have to do this alone. So we have another version where we're bringing in our record keepers, our TPAs, to show that you can have a broad team that's helping you delegate and bring expertise to these different components that will ultimately be helping the client. But again, it's just a nice visual to show all of the moving parts and how you're planning to address them going forward. We do have a sheet here that if you want to implement those hyperlinks into your presentation where you click the buttons and it sort of takes you to that most relevant topic. I'm not going to go through all of that today for purposes of time, but we can get this to you if you're interested in creating a presentation like that is live and can help take you to each of the components as needed. So just know that we have that if you'd like some help with creating that going forward. And then just a couple of final thoughts. Make sure that you're collecting stories, ideas from the clients that you're working with. It's really great to have that library of examples, real-time examples that you can bring out, because you're going to find clients that have the same challenges over and over again. So making sure that you have real life scenarios that you can talk through where you've seen challenges and help to solve for them. And then with the existing client that you're working with, really documenting where are you starting, where are you going, and where are you now? And that really helps you to highlight all of the different successes. Going back to the page that had their original goals and showing them this is what you wanted to solve for, we've solved for it. Now let's talk about what might be new and what you're thinking about as we go forward, just to continue to add that value and bring the value to your client relationships. So as we wrap up, hopefully this has been helpful in giving you some ideas on how to build out your pitch book. Again, there's not a one size fits all. You can definitely customize this for what works best for you and your business. We've given you some of the components. We've talked a little bit about how to integrate that into your business. On behalf of Kim and I, we just want to say thank you for giving us some time today. And if there's anything that you'd like to go deeper on in regards to our benchmarking survey, feel free to reach out to us and we can get you in touch with the representatives in your local market, but we're here to support and we appreciate the time. And Joe, I'll turn it back over to you for any last thoughts that you may have, questions.
Yes, thank you, Kim and Rachel. Appreciate the wealth of information, obviously, that you've provided today. And Rachel, you actually hit on one of the key components that I wanted to emphasize, which is, as we all know, there is so much content out there in terms of best practices and so on, and both Dimensional and Epic are here as partners for you, and leverage your partner resources. Obviously, Kim and Rachel presented a wealth of knowledge today. Although in just 40 minutes we packed it with as much content as possible, but by taking the time and working your way through all the materials that and the resources that Dimensional has, you can really continue to expand your presence within this market space and really work to differentiate yourself and the services that you can offer. The other thing too that I'll also reference, and Kim mentioned it in her part of the program, which was the reference on the website. It's amazing to me to see how many advisors who are in this space have very little mention of it on their website. There are some great ones that put it on there as a service that they provide, they promote it. But as we all know, what's the first thing that most people do when they are looking for a service provider? They go out to Google or they go out to their search engine and want to find who's in the advisory business for 401k retirement plans. Well, if it's not on your website, a prospective client is not going to know that you're in that business unless you've talked to them about it directly. So having just a page or two of content that references that, I think, is so key and important. Kim and Rachel, I don't know if you wanted to expound on any one of those two items that I just shared, but would love to get your feedback on both the resource use and the website.
No, completely agree with you. Adding in a specific page relative to you being in the business, how you serve, what clients you serve, how you serve them. Some of the things that Rachel mentioned, your qualifications, designations, anything that shows the breadth and your credibility in this industry will go a long way.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. Well, we'd like to thank Kim and Rachel and all of you for joining us on this Epic Insight webinar. As a reminder, we will be sending out a copy of today's presentation as a follow-up. As always, please don't hesitate to contact us if there's anything that Epic Retirement Plan Services or our partners at Dimensional Fund Advisors can do to support you in your efforts. We thank you, and we look forward to seeing you again on our next edition of Epic Insight. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.